Today we shall talk about the seventh and the last great reviewing. And tomorrow we will wind up the discourse on these great reviewings. And in the seventh great reviewing also, very much like the last one, that is the sixth great reviewing, the only difference is that in the sixth reviewing, it is about the heedful attention as a strength of a person who possesses the Aryan view. In the case of the seventh and the last one, it is also the strength, but as a result of the strength, the benefits that follow are dealt with. And this is how one considers this. Am I in possession of, as for the Aryan Sarapana, he or she considers thus, am I in possession of the strength possessed by the one who holds the Aryan view? So such is the Aryan strength. Now what is that Aryan strength? What is the strength of this Arya, or Noble One? As has been explained yesterday, the Buddha preached or proclaimed the Dhamma Vinaya, Dhamma as a teaching for the welfare of all beings, and Vinaya, rules how to conduct oneself while following these teachings. When one is giving this talk, one listens carefully. That was the strength given yesterday. And Buddha himself had given this talk, proclaimed these teachings, Dhamma Vinaya, with compassionate feeling, karuna, with the wisdom of exposition, Desanayana. And when somebody is giving this talk on Dhamma Vinaya, one hears it with full attention, understanding the meaning of the Dhamma. When one reflects upon oneself, especially one tries to remember one's experiences of practice and verifying the meaning of the Dhamma with one's own practice, one comes to understand the meaning of the teachings. Hence this expression, labati atta vedan. And then one also understands the spirit of the teachings, hence one is convinced of both the letter and spirit of the law, and realizes gladness connected with the Dhamma, as is given by Dhamma Prasanhitam Paramojjam. And Buddha says, thus, monks, one understands the meaning of the Dhamma in the letter and spirit of the Dhamma, and such is the strength of an attained person, a noble one. In this way, the Buddha reveals the second kind of strength as possessed by one who possesses the Aryan view, as the seventh great reviewing. It goes without saying that Buddha himself has said, if someone is giving a talk on this Dhamma Vinaya, doctrine, discipline, doctrine which is given for the welfare of all beings, and the Vinaya, which is laying down the rules of conduct for the practitioners while they are taking up the practice and following the teachings. While one is listening to this talk on Dhamma Vinaya with full attention, then while listening, as for the Arya, the Noble One, in this case Sarapana, understands the meaning of the talk as given by this expression, Atta Veda, and also the spirit of the law as given by this Labati Dhamma Veda. And while one is understanding the letter and the spirit of the law, one feels glad, as is given by this expression, Dhamma Paṇḍitā Sayadaw, by which one feels rapture, zest running through the body, such is given as piti pamoja. And also one will be experiencing the piti produced materialities, because piti has a function of refreshing one's mind and body. So there will arise this zest of rapture produced materiality produced by feeling of piti. And one feels in this way. And as such, whoever is fulfilled with the practice of Vipassana will feel something like this as they hear the Buddha's Dhamma. Even if it's given in Pali, one will come to understand both the letter and spirit of the law and will feel very extremely glad. More than 30 years ago, there was one teenage boy who went along with embassy to the United Kingdom soon after the independence. And at that time he was not so well versed in English or Burmese. But when he listened to the Dhamma, he undertakes the practice, and he was able to understand, according to him, the meaning of the spirit, the letter and spirit of the law, the meaning and its spirit of the Dhamma, namely Atha Veda, Dhamma Veda. And he said he felt very glad when he heard the Dhamma. So when one is practicing like this, one is bound to understand the meaning, the letter and the spirit of the law, and will become very glad and feeling of piti throughout the body. So he remarked that the Buddha was able to give this talk, which is very inspiring for him. And when one listens to Mahasi Sayadaw's talk, although it was in Pali, although this boy has not learned Pali, once Mahasi Sayadaw gave the talk in Pali, he felt very rapturous, and he felt he understood the meaning and the spirit of the doctrines. And a few years ago also, a young woman came to practice at the retreat, and he was able to understand the nature of the Dhamma, and she remarked that she felt a transformation in her life while she is still alive. And then she said she found an Aryan home, the home of the Aryas, that means the place where Aryas would be located. So that means to say that she was able to understand both the spirit, the meaning and the spirit of the law, and she felt that she felt some goose flesh in her body, running through her body, when she heard the Pali verses as given by the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw. By listening to this Dhamma Vinaya, one understands the meaning of the Dhamma as is given by this expression, Tapati Atha Veda, and also spirit of the law is given by this expression, Tapati Dhamma Veda, and becomes glad as a result of listening, of giving, listening with full attention. And when one verifies one's practice with the actual practice, practical practice with the meaning of Dhamma, the theoretical aspect of the Dhamma, one feels rapturous. And this is in accordance with what is said in this 7th Great Reviewing. And he or she considers thus, that means the Arya, once one has become an Arya, first supplementing path, he or she considers thus, I also am possession of this strength. It is the strength of a person who possesses the Aryan view, in that I am able to understand, when listening to the Dhamma, I am able to understand the letter and spirit of the law and feel extremely glad when I hear this thing. Such is the consideration or understanding as given in the 7 great reviewing. And after having reviewed this, he or she concludes as given by the Buddha that this is the 7th knowledge or great reviewing attained by one, that is the noble one, that is the noble supermundane one, which is not shared by ordinary people, that is Buddha-janas.
ဒီလိုဖြစ်တတ်တဲ့အရိယာခေါ်အားနဲ့လည်းပဲပြည့်စုံနေကြောင်းကိုသိရတယ်။အဲ့ဒါဟာခုနခုမြောက်တတ္တမပြည့်စုံကြလာပဲလို့ကြည့်ကြည့်ဆရာတော်ကြားကြီးကရှင်းပွားပြီးတော့ပေါ့လေ။တရားနာကြတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေဒီနားလည်းရအောင်ပေါ့လေ။ထပ်မှရှင်းပြပါမယ်။
And at the end of this 7 great reviewing, in order to inspire the listeners or the devotees, the late Venerable Master Sayadaw has given this aphorism that after listening to the Dhamma, as for the Ariya, the noble one, or Sarapana, he or she becomes glad after understanding the meaning, the letter and the spirit of the doctrine, and feels gladness and with piti running through the body. And such is the 7 great reviewing. And this is how I translate it. Hearing the Dhamma preached by the Buddha, one understands the meaning with zest. Zest means piti, pervading through the body. Such is the 7 great reviewing. The strength, as regards the strength given in this 7 great reviewing, can also benefit the pariyatti sasana. That means the teaching by learning, teaching of the theoretical aspect of the Buddha Sasana, Buddha's teaching. Because as one is fulfilled with this practice of Vipassana, will come to understand Pali literature much better after one is undertaking the practice, rather than previously. So even in ordinary worldly lessons, one will come to understand such things better than ordinary students. Because one becomes convinced of the nature of his mind and body, and also the teachings in connection with meditation. This connection, there was an incident some more than 30 years ago about a 6-year boy. In a wonderful manner, he used to come to the meditation center with his grandmother and listen to the talks, and became familiar with such talks on mind and body, Vipassana, and the nature of mind and body. And not only that, he became familiar with the expression of Nibbana, and Sayadaw wanted to test his knowledge. So he asked his boy, what is Rupa, body, what is Nama, mind? And he was able to give answers in a very wonderful manner. He was able to explain it, and he was even able to say about their arising and passing away. And Sayadaw wanted to ask more. He asked about Nibbana. Do you understand Nibbana? He said, yes, this is the cessation of mind and body. So Sayadaw said, and there will be nothing there? He said, not so. It is just mere cessation. Then Sayadaw said, then where there is nothing, if there is nothing, if everything ceases to exist, then there won't be any ear, eye to listen or see. And you will be able to see your beloved sister, and you will lose all kinds of pleasure, and you feel very bored by living there. How about it? So he answered, no, there shouldn't be any boredom, because there's no nama there to feel bored. So only when you have nama mentality, you feel bored. You feel it. So there's no nama to feel it. So in this way he was able to answer in a very plain, open manner. And also this boy has not taken up the practice as yet. So he was able to answer all these questions from his intelligence. So keen was his intellect. So if only he was able to understand both the theoretical and practical aspects, or was able to take the practice in order to verify with the theory, and it would be very wonderful. So it is advisable not to neglect such youngsters. And Paṇḍitā Sayadaw had this experience. Once a learned person came to him and said this. He said, although he had studied quite a lot, and he thought himself he was learned, but he was not really learned. He found out that he was not really learned. He was able to understand only a little more than just the rendering or translation of the Pali. Now, after he had taken the practice, he became more learned. That means he was more convinced of what is said about the Dhamma. Now, after he had taken up the practice and he read the books, he was able to understand both the letter and spirit of the law. That is the meaning of the Dhamma as given by this 7th reviewing, and also the spirit of the law, the arrangements, how it is arranged and how it is done. And also by being convinced with the letter and spirit of the law, he was able to feel glad, piti running through the body. And it was not the same kind of knowledge that he gained after the practice. It was a different thing. He was able to understand the doctrine more clearly. And he was not an ordinary person. He was a very learned individual. Moreover, at one time, one Mahathera, an elder, confessed like this to the late Venerable Paṇḍitā Sayadaw. He said that just learning the scriptures is not enough. You could be convinced of the Dhamma. For instance, among these 37 factors of enlightenment, there was this one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. There was this factor known as Tatra Majatata, Ubeka. It means Tatra, this or that object. Majatata, being neutral, staying neutral, the nature of neutrality as regards this or that object. In other words, one is neutral and balanced. There is no, without any elation or dejection about pleasurable or unpleasurable objects, and one is said to be balanced without any likes or dislikes about good or bad objects. And there also will not be any distraction, restlessness and remorse. Mind will not be removed from the object of attention. Also balanced these 2 pairs of wholesome states, namely Saddha and Prajna, faith and intellect are balanced. Neither of the 2 is in the extreme. And also Viriya, energy and concentration, these 2 factors also will be balanced without any one of them being in excess of the other. Just like driving a chariot yoked by 2 equal pairs of bullocks or horses, as the case may be. So he explained that just being learned in scriptures by study is not enough to be convinced of the Dhamma. Only when one undertakes a practice will one be able to understand the real nature of the Dhamma, such as when there is too much of zeal, there is too much of viriya, then one may overshoot. Too much of energy will overshoot the object. Or if it's too low energy, one will not be able to catch up with the object. And in this way there are ups and downs in the practice when one undertakes the practice. Especially when one comes to the stage of Uddiyabhya Jnana, that is instantaneous arising and passing away of psychophysical phenomena, everything becomes balanced, especially at the higher insight knowledge known as Sankarupeka Jnana. You are able to note every arising object with calmness, with ease, and such is the nature of the equanimity towards all formations. And he was able to understand the meaning of Upekkha Bojjhanga, the factor of enlightenment of Upekkha, and means equanimity. Only when one takes the practice and reaches these two kinds of insight knowledges. If just one is learned in scriptures, one will not be able to be convinced of the meaning of the letter and spirit of the law, as was considered by the Aryan Sarapana. And if one is not well convinced of the nature of the Dhamma, how can one convince others? That is a question. As for the practitioner, the yogis, if he or she has reached these two stages of insight knowledge, Uddiyabhya Jnana and Sankarupeka Jnana, instantaneous arising and passing away and equanimity towards all formations, and one will come to understand, one will be able to explain what is meant by Upekkha and how one feels and how one experiences at Upekkha, equanimity or neutrality, because one can explain it from one's own particular experience in a more easy manner. At one time, in those eras, in one era, there was the era of literature, literary talents, and I would consider that one literary talent was really good in literatures. And since Sayadaw himself also grew up with learning of literatures, holy scriptures, he also held this kind of thing in high esteem. Only when Sayadaw came up, appeared, who was able to give practical experience, teach practical experience, and he was able to verify his practical experience with what is said in the literatures, or vice versa, and he found that it was more easily compensable. Because as for just mere literary knowledge, one cannot understand the nature of the Dhamma. One will only understand the literary aspect of the Dhamma. Now with the practice and realization of the insight knowledges, one is able to understand the true nature or the real nature of the Dhamma. If one is just reading books or scriptures, then it will be just like tasting or eating food with just no salt in it. It will become bland or plain and not stimulating. Only when, in the case of Sayadaw, he was able to give both theoretical and practical aspects of the teachings, so that by undertaking the practice and by being able to verify the literary knowledge with practical experience, one is able to understand the true nature of the Dhamma rather than just the literary aspect. So only with the practice one can understand the meaning of the Dhamma as is given in this great reviewing. Also in the case of this another factor of enlightenment, namely piti samojjhanga, the enlightenment factor of rapture or zest. it won't, only one can understand with one's own particular experience. Otherwise, one will not be able to be convinced of the nature of this piti sambojjhana. Only when one has reached the stage of Uriyabhya Jnana, the instantaneous arising and passing away of psychophysical phenomena, even one is not learned in scriptures. If one is revealed or told about these 5 kinds of piti, one will understand very easily. And in this way, this Mahadeva, the elder who we were talking about, was able to explain about such things to Mahasi Sayadaw. Therefore, only when one has practiced Vipassana to satisfaction will one be able to support the Pariyati Sasana, that is the teaching, the literary aspect of Buddha's teaching. If one is undertaking the practice of the Dhamma, then one will also be supporting the Pariyati, the literary aspect of Buddha Sasana, and in this way one possesses the dual qualification of both learning and practice. And if such a person gives a Dhamma talk or teaches, then it will be very more convincing than other people, because one is teaching from one's own experience and one can convince by way of the nature of the Dhamma. And also students as well. If the student has undertaken the practice because he or she is well concentrated, the mind is serene, so he or she will be able to understand the teachings more easily. Even in the mundane, worldly teachings, worldly matters, if the youngsters have undertaken the practice, he or she will be able to understand teachings better than others. This has been explained or confessed by the parents and guardians of these children. Therefore, the practice can support the literary aspect of Buddha Sasana. As has been explained that when one is hearing the Dhamma Vinaya, doctrine, discipline, then as for the Ariya, he or she is easily convinced. And such is the strength possessed by the noble ones, Ariyas. And as for Puthujjanas, it is different. When they hear the Dhamma, they would complain that, oh, this is too profound and too boring, too dry, not stimulating. They want to hear stimulating stories. They want to hear good voice, like singing. They want to hear some humorous stories, to laugh, to funny ones. And if they are given this insight, Vipassana talks, mostly they don't go for such things. However, as for those who have undertaken the practice of meditation, when they hear this Dhamma talks, they can verify with this Pariyati, that means the teachings, the teaching aspect of the Dhamma, and they are easily convinced of the meaning and the letter and the spirit of the law. Such is the second great reviewing, how the Ariyas or noble ones are fulfilled with or come into possession of the strength that they possess and try in the beginning. But this is a teaching for the welfare of all beings and teaching of rules of conduct, how to behave in undertaking the teachings. And especially when one has seen this higher knowledge of the instantaneous rising and passing away, although in the beginning it may be dry, it may feel dry, one may feel dry, later on one may feel stimulated, interested. So that this kind of, one may be able to realize kind of happiness, which is because this kind of talk uplifts one mind and insight, developing the mind and insight, and this kind of happiness which can result from this practice is unalloyed and unforeseeable. So, unalloyed means it is good in itself, by itself, just one with one item. If it's good in one item, then you won't want to let go of it, unforeseeable, because it becomes stimulating. So whoever has taken up the practice respectfully, meticulously, will become stimulated in the end, will become inspired and energized. Such is the difference between the ordinary talk without any Satipatthana and Vipassana, or talks on Vipassana. Just try and verify. So if one has undertaken the practice, although at the beginning it may be boring, plain, later on it becomes stimulated and interesting, and you can try and verify according this with the 7 great reviewing. This much for today.